Today, we're going to take a look at this. We're going to review the AeroPress Premium, the newest brewer from AeroPress, coming in at $150, or in the UK, £180. To be honest, I didn't want to make this video. In fact, there's a lot of discussion amongst the team here about whether we make a video at all about this whole thing, and I'll tell you why. Because there's two kinds of people who want the AeroPress Premium. The first type, like an AeroPress, and they want a premium version. They want something that isn't made of plastic because they want something that feels weighty and solid and fancy and nice, because fancy and nice are nice things to have as part of your coffee brewing routine. Then there's the other group who want an AeroPress Premium because they don't want plastic in their brewer because microplastics. The first group, it feels a bit redundant. It's still an AeroPress. So what can I really tell you that you can't see for yourself? It felt like, can I offer something of value here? And then for the second group, I don't want to talk about microplastics. I don't want to think about them. I don't want to have an opinion about them. And I certainly don't want to share an opinion about them. But in making this video, my hand feels a little bit forced. So I will, but later. Now, you could argue, why then make this video at all? Well, turns out, in testing this thing, there are some interesting and peculiar quirks about the way that it brews that are different to other AeroPresses. That was interesting. It felt like something worth sharing. Then there are also these unintended consequences. I'll explain what I mean by those as well. So what I'll do, the first part, is I'll walk through this thing, just show you what the deal is, what it's made of and how it's put together, talk through the UX UI aspect of it. We'll brew some coffee with it, obviously. I'll talk about the slightly unusual way that it brews compared to other AeroPresses. And then, it's pretty important, does it make a difference? We'll brew this and a normal AeroPress and an AeroPress XL, and I'll do a little blind tasting to see if I can taste my way to a brewer or not. Does it really matter? After that, yes, I'll talk about microplastics. You win. So here it is. It's a weighty thing. The parts are made of different materials, which is interesting. Starting here at the little cap, now it's stainless steel and very heavy. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a heat sink, but it shouldn't massively impact your brewing, but we'll talk about temperature, don't you worry. Then you've got your main brewing chamber. Now that's dual wall glass. It's a choice. I get it. You know, there's not many materials that you could replace sort of plastic with that would allow you to see into the brewer. In fact, there's just one choice. So dual wall glass it is. Obviously that brings with it some fragility. And it also brings with it a change in the sort of volume and diameter and all those things. So actually on the inside here, it's about 4 millimeters sort of narrower than a conventional, normal, bog standard AeroPress. It's also then quite a little bit taller. So actually the total volume technically is a bit bigger. They say 300 mils on this and 300 mils on the standard, but technically the volume of this cylinder is 371 milliliters. Important stuff. But yeah, you get a little bit more capacity. They've made it taller, which is a choice. Obviously that also makes it a little bit heavier, which is, I guess if you're in, you're in. What's a few extra grams? And then the plunger. You still have your silicone piece at the bottom here. You need that, obviously, for a nice, good seal as you press down. And the rest of it is aluminium, so much lighter than sort of this. Less dense, let's go with that. This does take the standard AeroPress filters, even though this is a little bit narrower in diameter. Now, for me, this is a personal thing. I don't really enjoy that. That's the sound of metal on glass. I don't like it. Other people on the team were like, ooh, satisfying, like clunk, click, weighty. But for me, ooh, no, metal on glass, just not quite right. But I'm not really worried about robustness or sort of, damaging the glass or anything like that. It's just a feeling thing. It's a kind of personal thing. I'm, of course, duty bound to mention, as I put in my dry, unrinsed AeroPress filter, that we did make a big series of videos about the AeroPress, getting into the hows and whys of technique. We'll link to both the exploration video, which is a ton of fun, and the ultimate technique video that we made as well. They're down in the description as well if you want to brew a better AeroPress, or what I might enjoy as a better, more enjoyable, delicious AeroPress. Yeah, it's better. It does change the way you sort of use it in a funny sort of way. Like obviously putting this weighty thing of metal onto a glass jug, I'm more cautious, I'm more delicate, concerned in some ways. You don't want to be as slapdash as you can be with a traditional AeroPress. Are you going to fit? Are you going to cause me trouble? So first interesting thing about the way that it brews, it's going to be brew temperature. Now I know what you're thinking. This is going to lose way more temperature. And you're kind of right. I'm all right with a little bit of dripping through. It doesn't make a big difference. Anyway, yeah, essentially the metal here, the glass here, do pull more heat out of your brewing liquid than a conventional AeroPress. And if you preheat them, even then, if you preheat a standard AeroPress and this does initially lose a little bit more temperature. But we left some probes in them for a little while, and an interesting thing happened. There's a sort of transference of heat, especially in a preheated unit, from the brew water into the brewer itself. And then you kind of have a larger thermal mass, which will lose heat slower. So it starts at a sort of lower peak temperature in the brew. It'll peak a little bit lower than a conventional, but it will hold its temperature longer. And actually, after about 2.5, 3 minutes, it will be at a higher brewing temperature in here than a conventional AeroPress would be. If you're someone who likes the Gagné press, named after Jonathan Gagné's technique of like a 10-minute steep, if not longer, if you want to do that, nothing bad happens in a very long press, actually. You just get more extraction. It slows a lot, which is why you have to go so long to have a brew like this. But this brewer would be hotter at the end of that brew than a conventional one would be, which is kind of interesting, I think. Here, we're just going to brew for 2 minutes. Then we'll give it a little swirl, and then we'll press 30 seconds later. Obviously not on the scale, because we don't want to press on the scale, do we? No, we don't. Now, I was a little nervous with the idea of, pressing the metal against the glass. You can do that quite easily, but practically day to day, you're never pressing hard enough to really cause any problems, so that doesn't really bother me. Again, I'm never going to press super hard. Nothing good comes of it. And I will press all the way to the end, to the hiss, because I want every drop of goodness out, and it doesn't make your coffee taste worse. Before I taste it, it's too hot, I want to talk about a second interesting thing that we discovered in testing, which I'm hesitant to say is absolutely a thing, but kind of makes sense. You might have heard that in espresso brewing right now, one of the hot trends is to have a narrower, deeper basket, higher extraction, and so step-down baskets have become a thing. This is kind of an AeroPress step-down. Like it is 4 millimeters narrower, so the puck is narrower and deeper. And interestingly, if you compare this with a regular AeroPress, and you put the same coffee and same water, all the same stuff, across, I think, 20 brews, consistently, this extracted just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Now, is that consequential? I'm not sure, because you could adjust your grind setting very slightly on a conventional AeroPress and have a matching extraction. Over those brews, I think it averaged out a little bit under 0.25% more extracted, which is not a lot. It's not a massive thing. And you could argue it's not important data, and I would probably agree with you, but it's just a trend that I've noticed in the brews. Now, other things of note. This is hot now, which is annoying. I'm going to be honest. There's no way around it. It's just hot. You've just pressed 90 degrees Celsius water through it for a while. Letting it cool down a little bit before you dispose it's probably worthwhile. And then, yeah, it's not that bad, but straight away, a little bit hot. Certainly multiple brews, this will get hotter and hotter and hotter. Makes sense. One interesting thing, I need a knockbox for this, and I'll be interested to hear from you if you have one of these down in the comments below. We haven't had as neat a puck knocks as a normal AeroPress, right? So you used to, pop it out. Not bad, but just not quite as good. The regular AeroPress was just so neat and clean. Now, obviously, you might have been raised like me to be a bashing type person. Thankfully, they kept this bit metal, which is good, and I would be comfortable bashing that. In terms of maintenance, it's going to be the same as the regular AeroPress in terms of like washing and cleaning it, so nice and easy, no complaints. It's an AeroPress. The coffee tastes like a coffee from an AeroPress. Can you detect the temperature difference being very slightly slower? If you do a blind tasting or an A/B tasting and compare and contrast, then maybe, but actually as a one of one. No, it's just a tasty cup of coffee that you would expect from an AeroPress. But the comparative tasting, I think, will be much more interesting, especially if I can't tell the difference at all. One of the things I did want to talk about, though, is these unintended consequences. And one of the reasons that I felt like I might be negative about this brewer is kind of not AeroPress's fault. Go with me for a second here. If you think about what makes the AeroPress particularly charming, right, what made it so successful, obviously the top line thing is it's one of the least disappointing brewers of all time, right? In that, I meet people who buy one and they're just very happy with the coffee that they make. They're not frustrated by it. They're just having a nice time. And I see that level of satisfaction in AeroPress brewers more often, more commonly, more universally than almost any other brewer, which is notable. But beyond that, it's cheap, or it was cheap. And it's still relatively cheap, but it was cheap. And it was small, and it was convenient. You could travel with it, and it was bulletproof. You couldn't break it. You could pop a little grinder inside, get a hand grinder in there, have a little package to travel with. It was a kind of, every need was met for a lot of people. And at a sensible price point, they sold staggering quantities of these things. I don't know how many, no one will tell me, but it's a lot. They've sold a lot of AeroPresses. This brewer, by asking for, I want that, but nicer, didn't leave AeroPress as a manufacturer many choices about materials, right? You had to use metal, so that's going to be heavier. If you want it to be transparent, you have to use glass, which makes it fragile. And so it's no longer light and robust and easy to travel with. You know, it's lost some of the core charm of the AeroPress. And I don't think that's AeroPress's fault. People wanted the premium thing. And I don't think you can make a premium thing that still is all of the things that the original AeroPress was. There has to be compromise in a funny sort of way. And I wonder if this had been the first AeroPress, would it have been as successful? You know, it still makes really nice coffee. It's still easy to use. But would it have had the same success? And I don't know if it would. You know, I think there is real value to being affordable and, you know, lasting for a very long time and being super easy to travel with. I think there is real meaningful value to a huge number of people there. So it's interesting to me that in chasing a better version, have they kind of made a more expensive version, but a worse version? That was something I worried about. But maybe I'm just being harsh. Maybe, you know, going back to the two camps of people that want this thing, the people that want the premium are not thinking, I'm going to take this camping or on holiday or in my luggage or in my hand luggage or whatever else. They're just like, I want the AeroPress, but nicer. And so my complaints don't really matter to them. Seems like a fair point. So what we'll do now is we will brew 3 brews. We will brew a standard AeroPress. We will preheat the brewer. We'll preheat all the brewers. I think that's fair. We'll brew an AeroPress XL. That will be a double sort of size batch. Whether that plays a role or not, we'll see. But we'll do a double, so 24 grams to 400 mils in that. And then we'll do a premium as well. We'll split each brew into 2 cups, and then we'll mix them all up. I'll have 6 to taste in front of me. Can I find the pairs? Does one taste different? Let's find out. As a reminder, for those of you who have a little misophonia, just like me, if you don't want to hear the slurps, you can change the audio channel and have an audio channel that has no slurp sounds. Because I'm gonna taste these. They're all definitely coffee. They're all very similar. While I detect some differences, it doesn't mean that they're really there. We'll find out. I'm going to pair these A, B, C, A, B, C. So I think you two are the same, you two are the same, and you two are the same. Who's beeping? In terms of are there differences between the brews? Well, maybe. These two are very similar, if they are indeed a pair. And this one I like slightly less. So let's find out. Can you taste the difference between 3 different AeroPresses? This is AP, which is standard.
Premium.
Oh, premium. It's premium. Premium. AeroPress Premium, thank you very much. And this one, XL. XL. Look at me. Look at me go. And then, yeah, AeroPress Classic. And obviously, AeroPress Classic. That's not an extraordinary feat of tasting in many ways. That's not. This may be a little bit luckier here. This one just didn't taste quite as even. Like, you know, maybe the brew itself was slightly flawed. Not the, you know, slightly. Like, it's just a tiny bit less extracted to me. And so you could argue maybe the grind setting was optimized for an AeroPress Premium. But really, could I, if you gave me individual cups of these, could I tell the difference? Not even slightly. Would I take away from this test that the AeroPress Premium brews better than the Classic? I'm not sure I would. You might argue with the same grind setting, which obviously you could change, but with the same grind setting, I might prefer, you know, the narrower, deeper puck of an AeroPress Premium, but I don't think that's therefore a better brewer. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say that. I would just say, given a fixed grind size, you'd get a slightly higher extraction from that. That's basically it. I'm just delaying talking about microplastics, which I'm going to I'm going to do that now. I'm going to do that now, I promise. Let's clean this up. So one set of unexpected consequences of premiumizing the AeroPress is that, to me, it made it less of a AeroPress in a fun sort of way, right? Like, it lost some of its charm, and that was an unexpected consequence of changing all the materials. The other unexpected consequence is that people are going to be talking about microplastics more. And if most of what you sell is a plastic coffee brewer, I'm not sure that's great news for AeroPress. Now, look, microplastics. Like you, I suspect, I exist in two simultaneous states, one of which is this whole thing is just overblown, it's full of grift, it's full of nonsense, there's a bunch of anti-science going on here. It's just a big hullabaloo about nothing. The other side of me is like, oh no, I'm like 95% plastic at this point. This is killing me. My body, when I die, will never rot. It'll just lie there like a plastinated thing to be put on show at Body Worlds. It's a very specific reference, but if you know, you know. Let me say now, this is not the moment to turn on the part of your brain that may accept new information to change your opinion. I'm not trying to change your opinion on microplastics. If you are deeply anti them, nothing I'm going to say is going to change your mind. And I suspect comments will be filled with people telling me that I'm wrong about a bunch of stuff because they hold very strong beliefs that are slightly different to mine. As I understand it, there are things like BPA, bisphenol A. Yes, we know that there can be some endocrine disruption from those, and I would avoid things that have BPA in them. If I had an original AeroPress, probably wouldn't brew coffee with it. You know what I mean? Not a BPA-free plastic. I don't know how much BPA you'd get out of it, but ultimately I'd be like, no, I'm fine. I'll use a modern one. Triton or whatever they're using now, there are no matching concerns there, right? When it comes to other plastics, we don't, as far as I can tell, have direct evidence of harm. That does not mean we have evidence that they do no harm. If they do something bad, we haven't found it yet, but we haven't found it yet, right? Like we haven't got evidence in the way that most plastic is really bad. The whole area gets me really stressed out because it's just rife with grift. People trying to frighten you, to make money out of you, to sell you something. And that makes it a very opinionated, very loud, very noisy space where it's hard to get good information. From my own point of view, I don't remotely worry about the impact of using a regular AeroPress on the amount of microplastics I consume. If I was trying to reduce the amount of microplastic I consume, this would be a very long way down on my list of things to worry about compared to, say, drinking water. As an aside, and I'll try not to get too derailed by this, do you know that most microplastics definitions would be particles smaller than 5 millimeters? That's not micro, that's a chunk. That's a chunk. Now, some people would say smaller than 1 millimeter, even though I think to be sort of dissolved while in your body or to pass through into your sort of from the digestive system, I suppose, into you. You need to be about 10 microns in size, which is definitely micro at that point. Anyway, like of the plastic we eat, we expel almost all of it because most of it's bigger than 10 microns. This is not the point. Not the point of this whole thing. I know that there's lots of different kind of plastics used in coffee brewers and in coffee machines, and I think if there's definite evidence of stuff like BPA being present, then I would avoid that. Much like I would avoid drinking out of a water bottle that I'd left in a hot car. You know what I mean? Like, it's a sensible, probably not the best. Probably avoid that. But beyond that, until there's better evidence, I'm not sure it's worth freaking out about. I'm not sure. I'm sure there'll be plenty of evidence presented in the comments. I would advise you to, if you're going to take that evidence, dig a little deeper into it, have a look at the studies. And again, the reporting out there is wild, just wild and all over the place and just full of a lot of misinformation again. It's a really difficult topic, and I really hate that we're talking about it because I hate having to have an opinion that I might share with you publicly. Ultimately, like I said at the start, the biggest downside of the AeroPress Premium may be that for a company that mostly sells plastic products, everyone's talking about microplastics a little bit more. The AeroPress Premium is something that the community of AeroPress users has been asking for a very long time, for years and years and years. They asked for a larger AeroPress, they got that in the XL. They asked for a nicer, fancier AeroPress, they got that in the AeroPress Premium. It's $150, and to be honest, as I look at it and I think about it, I'm not sure that this will have a sort of a hidden huge margin for AeroPress as a manufacturer in that higher price point. It's going to be a smaller run. There's going to be a lot more sort of cost attached to doing it. The materials are much more expensive. I'm sure if they could sell this for $100 and make a good margin, then they would, because they'd sell twice as many at $100, if not more, than they would at $150. But the price is what it is. It is a lot of money. And I think about what I could spend $150 on. I could buy a very nice grinder these days, actually, or close to it. I could buy a pretty reasonable grinder, a little bit more money, get a very good grinder. Again, I'm just getting one little brewer. Or for the same money, I could get a regular AeroPress and spend $100 on coffee. Buy some pretty amazing coffee. And from a quality perspective, better coffee will trump a better brewer, if this is a better brewer, every single time. If I had my way, I suspect I would be interested in this glass piece being switched out for dual wall metal. I would love it to be entirely robust, dual wall, so there's no heat transfer concerns, but I could throw it around. It'd be probably a little bit lighter, maybe. Someone correct me if not. I don't mind that I wouldn't see the insides. You can barely see the inside on the kind of original AeroPress now, so that's not important. I'm mostly weighing the water anyway. The glass will always stress me out. It works pretty well. It looks nice. There's no concerns about picking up the hot thing. It does look pretty, but I have a history, like most people do, of glass coffee brewing stuff getting broken. I've broken Chemexes, I've broken carafes, I've broken glass French presses. I suspect in time, I'll break this too. Or someone else will. Actually, one of my Patreons who will be getting this unit, because they support the channel and give us the sort of funds to buy these things at full price like regular customers. Well, I hope they don't break it. I hope they last a very long time. Is it worth the money? That's kind of up to you. Would you pay $150 to have a slightly nicer feeling AeroPress? Do you have that level of disposable income? If you don't worry about it. You're not missing out. You're not missing out on better coffee, even though that tasting might make you think that, but you're not missing out on better coffee. You're missing out on a heavier, fancier looking AeroPress. And what that's worth is almost impossible for me to say. Anyway, that's the AeroPress Premium. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Down in the comments below, do you have one? How are you getting on with it? Have you broken it yet? Have you not broken it yet? Do you want one and you're just waiting to see if it's worth it? Would you never buy this? What would tip you over the line to upgrading your AeroPress? I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, but for now, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.